Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, September 4th, 2:31 p.m. Arizona time. My name is Richard Maxwell. I am here with the Arcadia High School Creative Musical Arts and Sciences program, or some folks from the Arcadia High School Creative Musical Arts and Sciences program. You can find us at arcadiacmas.com. We've got concerts and live stream events and recording archives and podcasts and all kinds of stuff. And we very much appreciate you watching and listening and tuning in. Today, it's Friday afternoon and weekly podcast time. And so, got a few folks with us today. Got Bonham and Elias, Percy, and Ethan. And I have Bonham is in the middle of a very intense construction project in the back there, but that's okay. Um, so, first of all, we're coming up on our first sort of official day off from the regular schedule of classes. Anybody got any plans for let me rephrase that. Does anybody have any plans that they can school appropriately share for the long weekend that we're about to embark on?
I'm going to the Museum of Music, the one with the original saxophone.
Are you going to MIM?
Yeah, I think it is.
So they're open now. That's cool.
Yeah, we
A
called
lot
them.
a
We
lot of
didn't
places are open now, actually, because
That's
yeah,
awesome.
a lot of places are opening back up.
That's great. Have you ever been there?
No, I've never been there. I just heard they had the first
It's
saxophone, so I was like,
really
of course.
fun. It's
It's
a
such
really cool place to
I
be.
hope that they allow you to have access to all the exhibits and things. But
I hope so.
it's a great place. In fact, we
I think
actually
they have an octo bass there.
yes they
Yeah,
do.
I think they have. Don't they have like the world's largest playable orchestral bass there?
Mm-hmm.
That's
They
crazy.
have all kinds of stuff there. It is it's a great place. It is a lot of fun. In fact, we need to go there when we're allowed to go on field trips again. We haven't been there in a few years. We should
We went
definitely.
there my freshman year, I think.
What did your freshman year? The year? Okay, I can't even remember now. But we definitely need to do it again. It was a blast. It's a really awesome place. It's a lot of fun and a lot of interesting. And they have great concerts. I mean, it's just it's an awesome place. Very cool. Anybody else got anything fun and exciting planned or
I'm supposed to
happening?
get my bass. Oh my god, voice crack! I'm supposed to get my bass this weekend.
Nice, very nice. What are you getting? Or is it just getting
Um,
repaired? Or
it's I forget the name of the model, but I know it's a Jackson bass. I cannot remember the model name right now because it was a bunch of
that's cool.
numbers,
Fun.
and it's got an extra string on it because you know me.
A 5-string bass. Cool. Cool. Cool.
My first
Cool.
guitar had an extra string on
That's all
it.
right. Hey, you know what? If it makes you feel inspired and want to play, that's all that matters. What else? Anybody else? Anything else? That's
I'm
okay.
going to Percy's.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna lower his action. I gave him a guitar to borrow. That was my old guitar. But the action's really high. Because the person who used it, my brother used it, and he liked using slider ring, so the action was super high.
Yes. And that can be, it's so funny how, like, any instrument, no matter how well intentioned, if it's not set up properly for the person playing it, just is the most uninspiring, aggravating, burn you out the fastest possible way. So that's actually very cool. You're going to go restore that guitar to its hopefully
Can't tell you
playable.
how many times I've sat on somebody else's drum set and
Oh, sure.
refused to play
Mm-hmm. Yep.
it.
And
Just
then you
because
have
it
to
was.
figure out, and then you have to figure out kind of like the over under of like, okay, I know that this is not ideal, but can I get through the gig versus this is ridiculous and these people should know better. And it's very hard to.
Yeah, going to people's houses and their rack toms are more vertical than the wall.
Well, do you build up muscle memory to where your drums are placed?
For me personally, I changed my drum set so many times that the only thing that stays consistent is my hi-hat and snare and my kick.
Uh,
No.
So
like with saxophones, like I'm so used to where my key locations are on my saxophone. Whenever I try out a new saxophone, I always hit it and it's always just a little bit off and I end up missing the key or not.
I do know for drums, maybe because I changed the actual configuration of my set so many times that I actually have the ability to play on a lot of different other people's setups because I'm more like open-minded to it. But I know people like my dad who's very just like if it's not set up exactly like Tommy Lee from the Shout at the Devil tour, I cannot even look at it. Like kind of
I have a
drummer.
question though on your setup though, because I know because you'll frequently send me like video clips or photos and stuff.
Mhm.
But Ethan's question made me wonder though, because and I know you are constantly changing things up, which I think is cool. But I'm wondering, maybe do you possibly have more muscle memory than you're attributing?
Well,
I'm wondering if it's like, okay, so right now in that location it's a 10-inch tom, and later it could be a splash cymbal, or it might. But do you know what I mean? So like the instrument that you're striking in that location might change, but the locations essentially are the same.
It depends on the project. I did realize that over the years, I keep on reverting back to this kind of like hair metal, two at the top, super flat, two on the bottom, super
Sure.
flat kind of thing.
Sure.
I have noticed that I am huge connoisseur for flat cymbals, and like flat and low drums. So like things
Okay.
like that stay super consistent. So if your drum is up here and super angled, like I think that's a lot more awkward than
Right,
if
that's
it
what I'm
were
saying though. Is I
like
wonder if
low.
there's
Like my muscle memory, maybe not for specific drum sets, like attributed to my drum set, but I think maybe for the more aesthetic kind of
no,
stuff, I guess I'd say.
but that's part of it. But like it's interesting. So like Elias, you play a lot of, well, maybe not as much as you want, but you play piano quite frequently. And I think about how like it's
A
funny.
lot,
I
a
mean,
lot.
it's interesting because it's like that might be the only instrument that is a little more subjectively consistent.
Yeah,
I
except
now
for waiting.
I was about to say
Yeah.
not necessarily like the resistance, the weighting, and the way it responds, because
Mhm.
that can be all over the map. In fact, that's notoriously all over the map.
Yeah.
But I was thinking more as like the actual physical spacing of the
Yes.
key. On the other hand, I know people that like do like a lot of EDM work and stuff, and I even have a couple somewhere. I don't know, somewhere in the studio. There's a few of those little like the mini keyboards, like the little 25 key ones that are like they're
Oh, I've seen those where,
They're
yeah,
just
I can't
super
like the desktop
tiny.
ones.
and I
Yeah.
love the idea of wow, you can throw that in the backpack with your laptop and off you go. And I love when I see people like that they're portable like that. But for the light, and my hands are not that big. I just cannot.
I can't do it,
I
no.
can't. I can like
Because
plunk sort of.
I'm so used to octave stretching just naturally, even when I'm like improvising, that smaller like keyboards,
Yeah.
like it throws me off. Not having
Any
space.
any
Yeah.
keys smaller than the lowest octave on a marimba is too small.
It's like that lowest octave is like
Well, that's
eight.
like drumsticks is super subjective. Ever since I've started playing, I've been playing Vader Fatback 3As, and I've never changed. And every time I've tried to change, I never liked the size or the weight
Sure.
or the particular wood or even coating or colors or anything. I've been playing the
Well,
same drumsticks for
and it's interesting too because when you think
7
about
years.
when you think about instruments in general, so much of it comes down to feel, not even like everybody talks about tone, or they talk about like the melodic or harmonic content of whatever you're playing. But I think that there's a, I think when you get to a certain level, you start to realize that that's all predicated on your ability to feel like you can actually get the instrument to respond the way you want it to. And if the weight is off, or if the, like on a,
It's
having
like
been
driving somebody
2,000 years
else's
ago, having
car.
been in, what's that?
That's like driving somebody else's
Yeah,
car.
you're so used to yours and
Yeah.
the way it responds.
And then you sit in somebody else's car and you're like, wow, this gas is super sensitive and these brakes don't work.
Exactly. And but I think that that's kind of interesting as far as like how people then approach. I think that's why you wind up with people like Willie Nelson, who plays, his guitar is called Trigger. It literally has a bullet hole in it. And if you look at it on any objective, evaluation of any kind, that instrument needs to go. But in his hands, it's the right instrument, even though on paper.
Well, that's why like every guitar player, they don't go on tour and then rent a guitar like a drummer
Oh,
would rent
like
a
BB
drum
King's
set.
Lucille. That's his guitar.
Yeah,
Lucille is the
they
guitar.
take their like that's more subjective to guitar players, I think, because drums are really expensive to ship overseas if you have to, so you rent a drum set.
Yeah, but
But
you'll always find, but you'll see, it's funny, you were talking about how you have certain like hi-hat snare configurations, but you will see, I see drummers all the time that will tour, they're touring like you're talking about, but they will bring their snare drum and they will bring their hi-hat cymbal.
yeah, most of the time, yeah, they bring like you'll bring
And
your own
obviously their own
pedals and
sticks, yeah, and their own pedals. I think it's where the tactile stuff is. I think for the guitar players the same thing, but you'll see them renting amps all the time, or even pedals and effects.
see, I think
Keyboard
yeah, when it comes to
players.
the physical instrument that you're playing,
Mhm.
you always have to have yours. Like drums, you always have to have your
Except again,
sticks and your pedals.
weirdly though, not keyboard players all the time. In fact, I remember seeing a progressive rock band who I will not name, although I'm a fan, just because I don't want to get, anyway, it's just weird. But I remember seeing them play, and then at the end of the concert, this giant crew comes on the stage to start clearing stuff, and the keyboard player had a massive keyboard rig, and I was so amused watching the crew comes on the stage, and there's like literally it. I would swear to you, there was like a dozen people, and their entire job was just this keyboard rig. So it was massive.
That's crazy.
And don't get me wrong, the guy who's playing it is absolutely one of the best.
Were there multiple keyboards?
Oh yeah, but here's the thing. They're pulling out stuff, and you see them. They've got some cases and stuff, and then all of a sudden, you see all these cardboard boxes. And it was very clear that what was going on was he had a couple of keys that must have been his, and then he was renting from who knows where
all the other stuff,
and
they had to ship it
literally
back.
It was like you saw them pull out like these like shipping container boxes, and then like they like you see them like they're pulling out like styrofoam, like like
Instead of road cases,
and they're wrapping it all up. I know, it was just really bizarre. It's like I'm like, how in the world is he doing a tour all over the world with those? And then I'm finally like, it took me a minute. I'm like, oh, because he's not.
See, keyboards are different than pianos for me though, because I feel because of what keyboards are typically made of compared to like a piano, like
they're a lot more
acoustic
consistent.
Like an
piano.
ivory touch
Yeah,
piano. It
like
feels
my
different.
electric piano is the weighting on it is abnormally like it's really heavy for some reason, and I didn't realize that until I started playing other instruments, or even like the baby grand on the soundstage. It's even though it's like technically easier to play because the weighting is probably better, it was harder for me to get used to because I'd been used to playing such a heavily weighted piano.
So that's why a lot of keyboard players, like they will go to like a dozen different stores and find the heaviest weighted keyboard they could possibly find just to sit there and practice speed on scales.
I remember I would say two things. So I remember there used to be, I think Roland, they used to make this weighted keyboard system, but you could adjust it. I don't.
Oh, really?
I think they still do that.
It was like stupid expensive, like everything Roland does. It was
Yes.
worth every penny. But I also recall it was I had an old, like, I mean, big, huge Roland weighted keyboard, and it weighed like 80 pounds. I mean, it was.
Oh, you were telling me about that, yeah.
But it felt, but the thing of it is that there was, and I think the technology's improved enough in the last 10 to 15 years. But part of the problem, 10, 15, even, however long ago, was the concept of a weighted keyboard was brilliant, but it literally required enough mass and actual weight to set up the counter, whatever the physics are in those keys, so that it would feel so good. So you could not find a lightweight, like nobody had a portable one. It was like, that was the joke amongst professional keyboard players was, I might as well actually take a real piano at this rate because this is so heavy, with the exception of the fact that I don't have to tune it.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it too is at the time, when those things first came out, there was a lot of variance in terms of like sample quality. So then you had like completely separate just piano modules and everything else. Now with the way technology is, it's different.
Like Roland's new electric drum sets that just came out.
Yep.
They're almost as good as an acoustic drum set. Almost.
I think we were talking about this the other day, or maybe I was talking about it with my son Grayson because he's into that stuff a lot now. The only thing that they seem to not have quite figured out is how do you make the cymbals look?
Yeah, because the look of the cymbals.
Now hiding in the triggers are now hiding in actual shells, and if you didn't know,
well, it's like you can go buy those. Roland makes them. They're 360 degrees weighted like a cymbal, You can spin them around and stuff, but they're gray.
Yeah. There's I know what you're talking about, and they're good, but they don't. I don't know. It's weird that the rubberized plastic, the heavier cymbals they make, weirdly do well. The other company that's actually kind of surprised me lately is Alesis, like re-up their whole game on electronic drums and a lot of other things. But
Yeah, with the Strike Pros that just came out.
they're actually pretty good.
They're they're not Roland. They're not the new Rolands, but I mean, they can compete with like the.
Well, yeah, but that new Roland drum kit you're talking about, I think is like an $8,000 investment.
Oh, really?
Just the brain is like 2,000, I think.
And worth every penny. I got a chance.
Oh, totally is worth every penny.
But so is having a car and paying your mortgage.
Yeah, a life.
Yeah.
But it's interesting though. Like, so I'm gonna ask you. Actually, I had a different question in mind that I was gonna throw to the group, but I'm gonna throw. This is actually a really good conversation that we got on here, so I want to continue it. I have a question. So I want you to remove the issue of cost for a moment. I want you to forget about so cost is no object. So
I do that in my brain a lot.
The most expensive version of what I'm about to ask you is totally on the table and it's fine. And no, we're not going to go buy it for CMAS tomorrow. Well, but maybe, who knows? Convince me. No. Here's my question though. Where's
White BMW?
If it
in paint CMAS across it.
You know what? I'll ask. I have a feeling that one's going to get denied, but I'll see what I can. I'll see
advertisements.
If you don't, what's
CMAS Mobile.
If you don't, there you go. I have this vision. You say that, and I really, really the worst possible embodiment of the Scooby Doo van thing. It's like
with the CMAS logo.
Yes, it would be all the worst parts of that entire thing. But no, here's my question. So forget cost for a moment. Is there where would you say because I think there is a line on this. There's not really a gray area. There's a yes and a no side to this. It just depends on where you put the line between using emulated instruments versus the real thing. And again, I'm not talking about the idea of, it's a great idea, but because the quality is so poor. I'm saying the higher end gear, the stuff that like the $8,000 Roland kit. I'm not talking about a $50 knockoff thing. I mean, I'm thinking more creatively. Where's that line where you would go? And if money's not an object, where's the line where you'd say no, or where's the line where you'd go, I'd get that, I'd put that to use right now if I could?
Wouldn't it kind of depend on what you're doing and what gigs you're in? And...
Yeah, I was just about to say it depends on the context because, for example, I live in a house, so I have the luxury of having my acoustic drum set in my house that I can play. So over an electric drum set, I would take literally just about any acoustic drum set over an electric drum set any day. But if I really had to, I would have an electric drum set.
If you're in an apartment or something.
If I was in an apartment, or maybe I just didn't have as much space as I have right now because I have a nice chunk of space to keep my drum set.
Ask why?
Because I have become so accustomed to the feel of not only just an acoustic drum set, but the feel to this specific drum set, that playing any other drums feels wrong almost.
No, I can appreciate, and there's something about, we don't talk
that's like playing a guitar for 20 years and then going to buy another one and hating it just because it's not the guitar.
So I used to talk to especially my orchestra students about this, because it's not that it doesn't manifest in other instruments, but I think orchestral players experience this more viscerally sooner. You start to realize the resonant quality of an instrument as it actually affects you physically. We always talk about it vibrates and sends sound waves out.
Well, yeah, that's probably like Ethan with his saxophones. I know he was telling me one time that he was thinking about getting a new saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
And he's probably going to take him a while to adjust to the new saxophone, no matter how much better, how much nicer it is.
100%.
Yeah.
go tell me more about that, Ethan. So you're looking at another instrument?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I go to Milano's all the time and I like to try out other things.
Sure,
And
no, of course. Why, hey, if you got
but
the access, why not?
there's always a learning curve, just especially with key placements, because every brand has such different it's not very big, but you can definitely tell it's different positions of the keys and where they are. And there's always going to be a learning curve.
Sure. Well, so I was just, but I guess back to the idea of the technology part of it, because I wonder about like Percy. So you're looking at playing some acoustic guitar, and I know that for some people, the acoustic guitar is appealing because they like see an artist that they like, and they play acoustic guitar, and they're like, I like that song. I want to learn how to play that song. What instrument are they playing it on? Okay, I'm going to go get that instrument or as close to something similar as a starting point. And that's completely, I think everybody goes through that stage at some point where you get inspired by seeing somebody else do it and then you try to get the same thing. But I've also wondered if there is some appeal about, and for the same reason, like I said with my orchestral students, that instrument vibrates. You feel that instrument. Like when you strum an acoustic guitar, when you're holding it, you feel it. And I've wondered if, like, personally, because I know that some people respond to, I do certainly too, kind of, I would like to think to both, but like there's something about when you plug an electric guitar in and you get that warm, big, electrified tone of it, I personally, I love that. I just think that that's really cool, and there's a lot of like really wonderful elements to that. But the one thing you don't get from that, I mean, I guess if you stood in front of the amplifier you could get it sort of, but that's, I mean, a whole separate,
It's your
that's
prerogative.
Like, are you talking about like literally feeling the
Yeah.
instrument that you're
Yeah.
playing?
That's what I'm
Oh, yeah,
wondering.
yeah.
Like your acoustic drum issue, I wonder if there is something about, because drums, there's a massive amount of sound pressure. Now, granted, most of it's going away from you,
Well, yeah,
but you're still going to have some of it. You're in a room. You and I, Bonham, you and I have talked how many times about the acoustics of your space and trying to figure out where to place the mics and what to do to adjust. I mean, so there's clearly, you're experiencing some kind of actual physical response.
yeah, I have noticed, depending on where the drums are at physically placed in my room,
Right.
plays a big role in how much I like or dislike the way they sound or feel. And
I'm interested in the
I'm
feel
not,
part.
I'm
That's a
not
really
even in that
storytelling.
big of a room. I'm in like a 10x7 is like the size of my room. So
Well,
it's like, it's crazy how much moving my drum set over a foot
Yeah,
can do that much.
absolutely. And because it's a smaller room, it's almost going to have more impact.
Yeah.
Like, Percy, I want to go back to you for a second. And this isn't like a trick question. I'm legit curious, because this idea of where's the line between, and with guitar, it's a little bit, we're getting into a gray area, because there's an argument to be made that an acoustic guitar and electric guitar are not even the same instrument, and calling them, they're only related because they might have the same number of strings, and there's some similarities to chording techniques, but they're not really the same instrument. But I am curious, like, why acoustic guitar and not electric? Not that there's anything wrong with either.
I think acoustic was just a lot less intimidating to me.
Sorry, product placement. Diet A&W cream soda, just to be clear. Okay.
Sponsor us.
Cream soda's best.
There you go. So tell me again.
I think it was just a lot less intimidating to me. Mostly because I have very slightly dabbled in acoustic instruments.
Okay.
And that was just a very cheap ukulele. But something electric just sounded very foreign to me.
It's so interesting, because from a purist instructional standpoint, not always, but generally speaking, an electric will be easier to play because it won't be as hard on your fingers. It doesn't require as many calluses. It's so interesting to me, the perception, and I'm not saying you're wrong or that you shouldn't do it, but it is interesting that the electric guitar we think of as in one category versus, I think that's part of the reason why.
I could see why Percy would be like intimidated by electric guitar though,
No,
because
I get it. I'm not.
because
I
I mean,
from a
think about it though, like
standpoint.
electric guitar, like what happens? You have to you buy a guitar, right?
Right.
And a cheap electric guitars, you can really tell it's a cheap electric guitar. So
That's true.
let's say you're a beginner and you have a friend who's trying to help you out. So you have a friend who's trying to get you the best bang for your buck wants you to stay in it. So, you get a decent beginner guitar that's like what,
Mhm.
$200-$300, and then you get a decent amp. So let's say you get like a Line 6 Spider or something that's like $200,
Mm.
and then you have to buy cables for that.
Does it have to be a
And then
Spider though? Okay, I'm sorry.
well,
My beginner
well,
amp was a $20 little thing from Radio
well,
Shack. So
Line 6 Spiders, I'd say, I
That
mean, they're
company makes a
not
lot of great
even
gear.
that
That
terrible.
company makes
I
a
think
lot of great gear. That is
those
not one of the pieces of
specific
great gear.
amps get
Hold on a
so
minute though,
much
because I want to go back
hate.
to. Hold on a minute. I want to go back to this with Percy because I feel like we keep getting lost from.
Well, I was gonna say I know why she's like intimidated, because, or
No,
why you could be, because you can buy a $50 acoustic guitar and they're honestly not terrible
no. Of
compared to a
course. Well,
$50 electric guitar.
but again, I still think it comes down to the feel of the instrument. We talked about the other day. There was one class we were talking about Jack White. He's playing Walmart fiberglass guitars,
Yeah.
Oh,
literally.
really?
They're and then could not find them any longer. And then I mean, there was like a whole it's craziness. Percy, though, I'm curious because I wonder though, like you said, the idea of something electric felt foreign to you. Did you at all? And it's okay if the answer is no. I'm just curious. Did you at all explore what's
hello, Shiro.
what the foreign element? Hey, there's a bird.
Hello, Shiro.
Wow. Is he gonna? It's not gonna like try to eat the camera, is it?
He's gonna like end the call.
Yeah. Nope. We're done now. Click. No, I'm just wondering, like where was your like how do you evaluate that, or did you
Um,
just kind of?
I I didn't really put a ton of thought into it. I kind of just
That's okay.
I saw something that, and yeah, I saw Elias play a lot of acoustic guitar. I was like, I want to learn how to do that because that's neat.
Okay, see, but that to me, like you're almost like you're almost phrasing it as though you think that that's not significant. I actually would argue that that's really significant and actually kind of interesting to me in the context of possibilities, in the context of what may or may not, be possible with all of this. I'm wondering, Ethan, I want to talk
Yeah.
about your saxophone in regard to this technology. So I know that at one point recently there was a discussion, and and I actually feel bad because we talked about lending you. We have that Iwi that
Oh, the Iwi in there, yeah.
and then I saw you the other day. We picked up some gear. We for those listening, we were socially distance responsible and everything else. But you picked up some stuff, and I forgot to give you that. So,
Oh no, that's okay.
we should. Well, but I would love to get it. It might as well get used in this time.
Mhm.
So, what was the impetus for?
It's a word.
They make virtual saxophones and clarinets and stuff, and I think I want to go invest in one.
I don't know. It's cool just because you would never think like a brass instrument could become electric.
Okay, so
They're like a woodwind. Sorry.
No, but so start there and go further with me. I'm trying to. I'm just curious. Is it just the novelty of I'm playing saxophone still, and yet I'm not playing a saxophone, or is there something for you specifically that you're like, oh,
Well,
if I had one of these, I could.
for
Whatever.
me, I think the breaking point was I'm so familiar with saxophone fingerings, like more so than piano, where I feel like I could create, and with an electric saxophone, you can input your own sounds. So I could create more and more of my ideas and put it onto the computer.
Okay, so that's the second part of my point here, my question then. Does your opinion of that line change if you start to reconsider the application?
Oh, of course.
Like and how much are you willing to put up, and then at that point, how much are you willing to put up with in terms of, I'm going to say, flaws in the design or in whatever element you want to think of? How much of that are you willing to put up with if it allows you to do the unique or weird
I think I could get around the flaws. I think the biggest thing difference wise is as you're playing, you don't feel the vibration of the playing. So it would just be like kind of nothing unless you had sound actively going.
Sure, true. A lot of, it's funny. A lot of live musicians will talk about how singers, in particular, they'll get these really expensive in-ear monitor systems so that they can hear accurately, and they're wonderful. And then almost all of them will tell you that they take one of them off
Oh, really?
because
Why?
the resonance effect of it. First of all, it throws off your ability to hear pitch accurately because your head does something. Most people's heads does some weird like resonance chamber thing that makes your sense of what pitch is.
I've seen a lot in like, so I'm mainly like a metal guy in like that genre, and I see a lot of where they're doing their Cookie Monster vocals. They always have both of them in,
Right.
and then right when they go into their cleans, they take it out, and they do this thing the whole show where they're sliding it in back and forth, back and forth.
I didn't
Oh,
know
really?
about the going back and forth, but I'm pretty
Um,
sure the clean part is because of melodic control. They don't feel like they
well,
can hear
yeah,
the
I was about to say I had the privilege to meet Spencer, the lead singer from my favorite band, Periphery.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and I asked him about that because um I noticed that watching like some live videos. Like, why do you always do that?
Right.
And he goes, "You're the only person who's ever asked me that."
Huh.
I thought
That's
that was
cool.
really cool.
That's
And
very
then
cool.
and then he went on and said that he does it because uh he can't control pitch, just like you said in your cleans.
Right.
So
Right.
you can't control pitch, and then but he can't. There's so much noise going into this ear because he hears drums, guitars, stage monitor, crowd noise. That when he's screaming, he can't hear himself screaming as well.
So
And because
interesting.
that's not so much pitch
Right.
reliant,
Right.
not as much. I mean, Spencer's a special case because he does do a lot of pitch and melodic content within that.
Sure.
But he always slides it back in because he feels like he's able to tune in more to the vibration of
See,
his
and
throat
and that to
to
me
do
is so
that.
fascinating in the sense of he's trying. It sounds like what you're describing is he's trying to balance the visceral
Like
momentum, the energy part.
yeah, it seems like he's just trying to isolate so he can get the best performance out
Right.
of.
Right. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Also, I think a lot of people that
Drummers do the same thing. I
yeah,
mean,
oh,
I
absolutely.
do that multiple times. I've even gone whole sets with one in ear in and then an
Sure.
earplug in the other because I usually get terrible in ear mixes for my drums and I can't hear my own drums. So
Well, and it's and there's an issue of consistency. There's an issue of it. It weirdly it comes back to feel. It
yeah.
really does.
And
Mhm.
I use those Shure 215s.
Uh huh.
They're like $200. They're super cheap, super amazing for how cheap they are too.
Sure. Sure.
Um And I have this problem after a while, playing for like an hour. I get like a super compressed feeling in my head, like if I have a really bad sinus headache.
Mm-hmm.
And usually just popping one out for 15 minutes like gets rid of that
You
too.
are probably pushing you're got too much sound pressure hitting your eardrums. Is probably what's causing that. That
Maybe.
headache is probably a response to your body saying,
No, it's not even a headache
"Please,
because it
sir,
doesn't
no more."
hurt. It just feels like I have air trapped in my ears, like I'm in an
Yeah.
airplane, but I
Well,
can't
no,
pop
you
my
would. I
ears.
mean, look, think about it. That movement, that so there's
They're
a
showing your
driver, right?
Eustachian tubes.
What's that?
It's your Eustachian tubes telling you to give them a break.
There you go. There you go. Says the
Not when I
EMT in
got
training.
30 minutes
It's
more of
true.
a set.
But you know what? But if you think about it, it makes sense because that driver is literally pushing air. I mean, if you
And
look
it's right.
at
It's right next to
so
your
it's
ear.
not gonna and it's not gonna take. That's the other thing too. I think we forget about, especially with things like headphones. It doesn't take that much because the proximity is so close,
Mhm.
and the space in general of the inside of your ear is so small. You don't need a lot of sound. You don't need a lot of pressure, and you don't need a lot of force or a lot of
You just need
mass to
accurate
fill
pressure and
them.
force.
It's just it's going to overload quickly.
That's why 1964 audio, their higher end in ears, the ones that come with custom molds of your ears and stuff,
Mhm.
they have this like special filtration system where it lets air cycle in
Oh,
and
no
out,
kidding! It's like a
but it
vent
doesn't it
thing.
doesn't let sound in. Or
Wow.
not
So
as much sound in. So you still get your 15, 20 decibel reduction from wearing these, but
mhm.
uh you don't get the pressure buildup. So people like everybody, almost everybody in Dream Theater uses them because they don't have any openers.
They play
They don't
long shows.
so they play like 3-hour shows. They don't have the luxury of,
Yeah.
so I know Jordan Rudez uses them. And the exact reason why he says is because they have that filtration system.
Interesting.
Does
Yeah,
that have to do with so like let's say these Sennheiser headphones are not open backed headphones, but these Sennheiser headphones are open backed. What
Right.
is the point of that?
Anybody
It
wanna
does
answer
give
that
more
before I
depth.
do?
What was that?
So it's a little bit of it is ear fatigue related and avoiding what Bonham's talking about. Some of it though is also that you get by not having this is I don't know. I'm probably going to go down a rabbit hole of technology that I'm going to misspeak here. So I'm going to forward this by saying any mistakes I've made, please don't like leave
I
nasty
won't
comments
quote
in
you,
the chat.
but
But in all seriousness, some of it is because if you think about airflow, right?
Mhm.
So again, that speaker's moving, sure, okay. As it's moving, you're going to get air, which means you're going to have a resonant factor. If it's solid, that means that the casing itself is going to have a bigger, sorry, not bigger. It's going to have a stronger resonant impact on how you hear what's around, right? If there's
Yeah.
holes in it, that air passes through, which means you're really getting more of the actual sound from the driver, and you're not being subjected as much to the rest of
Yeah,
the
I was just about
mechanisms
to say,
involved.
wasn't open back headphones like mostly invented for people who can't mix with monitors?
Well, that I don't know if that was how they were invented, but it's definitely an advantage. The other thing though is they're also the trade-off is they're softer and they are noticeably, and I mean like
Darker
in
sound.
volume,
That's what it is.
they are noticeably softer in volume. So when you A/B a pair of closed back versus a pair of open back headphones, there's this weird thing that they've done studies on this. All things being equal, when you hear two different things, we should do this in class one day just to see like you four have to be like totally can't give it away. But they've done studies where basically it comes down to it not ear bleedingly so, but if you have like a plus maybe 3 or 4 decibel difference,
Mhm.
almost everybody on first listen, if you don't tell them anything else and just say which one do you like better, unless there's an extreme change in the mix, they will invariably pick the louder one.
Oh,
And not
really?
because it's better, it's just something psychologically. And it doesn't matter what order you play them in. It's not like, oh, they'll take the second one because the second one's louder. No, you can play the first one and have that be the louder one, and they'll say they like the first one. You can have it be the louder one could be the second one, and they'll say they like the second one. There is something about a little extra push. So my point is that if you want to A/B those headphones, make sure that you're compensating at least to some degree for the volume change, because just your normal human being response will be, oh, I like the louder. You'll like the closed back ones
Or
for
just get a nice
nothing to
set of
do with sound.
monitors.
What's that?
You won't have that just get a nice set of monitors and you won't have that problem.
But sometimes it's not practical. The other thing too is that, I mean, I can tell you from my own work, doing production and stuff and mixing and producing other people's material. Sometimes you can't hear the detail.
I
Like
was just about to say sometimes
you need
when
you need
I've
the headphones to
mixed,
really hear
well, and
what's going on.
open back headphones, you get a lot of like bleed from the outside. And
Oh,
I
absolutely. Yeah.
noticed
Open back headphones are terrible to record in,
some people
I think.
some people run monitors and then open back headphones together when
Yeah.
they're like mastering albums and stuff.
Sure.
Oh,
Sure.
really?
You can there's any number of things. A lot of that's also going to come down to you have to learn the space you're in well enough that you can trust the instincts of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Which takes me back to, and we're coming up on the end of this of our time here, but takes me back to my original question. Emulations of instruments or technology versus the real thing. If money's not an object, because you can now, I mean, it's funny, Bonham, you made me just think about something, which is the fact that you don't even have to limit this to instruments. You can buy emulation. There's this thing called convolution reverbs, for example, where they literally create a reverb that's designed to emulate not just a type of space, but a very specific space. I want to put my drum kit or my guitar inside, I don't know,
Concert
Abbey
hall.
Road Studios, Studio B in Abbey Road. I want that room.
Oh,
I
you
want
can
their
do
reverb.
that now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Because I
it's
mean,
Oh,
I
that's
know
crazy.
there's presets where it's like reverb, concert hall,
right,
school
right. That's
hallway.
what I'm saying. So you can now do these. There's impulse responses. They're calling them. It's a whole different type of sampling technology. It's both amazing and terrifying, like everything else, depending on how it gets applied.
That's gonna be really nice for the movie industry.
Oh, they're already using it. They're totally
Yeah,
already
I was
using
gonna say that's gonna be really nice
it. If the
because
movie industry ever comes back, which I hope.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
It's in the hole right
That's a
now.
whole nother discussion. I actually was
Um,
just talking to our friend Mr. Luce. He went, like drive-in theaters are suddenly making a big comeback.
Are there drive-in theaters here?
There's
there's
one.
like
one
I
there's
know there's
a
one in
couple.
Glendale.
There's like one or
yeah.
two.
It's
They're
supposed
not in
to be
Oh.
nice.
Phoenix.
There used to
but
be
there's-
one pretty close to not too far from us on McCormick, I think it was. No,
Another one you're talking about.
it's like
I used to drive
corporate
like right
activities.
past it all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I don't think it's there. I don't think it's still in
It's not.
operation.
No.
You just
It was in
tuned
that,
the
like,
radio
cornfield.
to
I'm pretty sure if
like
you
such a certain channel.
Yeah, they're like the screen is here, and then they'll tell you like your station, tuning to this station, and they beam it in. And if you have a car with a decent stereo system, it's
Tesla.
not
Or you
bad.
just park really close to someone else because usually they open their doors and sit in the trunk.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Well, but see, what's weird is, so from what I understand nowadays, like they're monitoring that because you
Yeah.
have to maintain
You have to be.
the social distance thing. So
Well, Lee, I saw one where like they did that at like they did like a comedy festival, and like you can go up and drive like listen to, like 30 comedians, but like they just radio channeled it to your car. And then I saw one where they did that at like with like a country music festival.
I was about to say, I can't remember which one, but just recently somebody did one, and they had like little like pods. It was
Yeah.
like, it was.
Oh,
like
that was in
pods.
England. That was a festival in England. I was talking
Was
about
that where?
car
Okay,
stuff.
yeah. It
That was a
actually.
festival in England where like and there's this like comment on it. It blew up on Twitter and Instagram too. Like I
remember
saw it
thinking,
all the
That's
time.
actually an interesting idea. If that allows us to bring back live events.
Yeah, but like I want to mosh.
Well,
Just kidding.
on that
Not right
note,
now, bottom.
on that note, this has been a really interesting discussion. I'm so glad you guys joined me on this lovely Friday afternoon from a very sweltering Phoenix, Arizona. It is
It's very warm.
just going to be a brutally long and wonderful but hot 3-day weekend. Wait, what? We can't hear you.
Hello?
Nope, you died. Your mic's gone. That's fate's way of saying we have to end the podcast.
Perfect timing.
That's funny. Anyway,
No, seriously. Oh my god. Wait, can you hear me now?
I'm gonna give
No.
you
No.
literally. I'm starting a timer. You have 20 seconds to say your last point.
Can you really not hear me?
No,
No.
we couldn't.
Yes, we can
Now
hear
we-
you.
Yes.
Okay. No, I was gonna say you know like you got acoustic instrument, you got electric instrument. Okay, what's better, real chicken or vegan chicken?
It's up to preference. Some people can't tell the difference.
Vegan chicken's gonna be healthier.
So you're
I
saying
prefer
electric
acoustic
instruments are healthier?
I prefer vegan.
I prefer. You are no way.
So anybody who
wait,
chooses
okay,
vegan
I
chicken
cannot-
says
I-
electric instruments are better.
But it's circumstance. It's literally circumstance.
I just prefer acoustic.
I like
instruments.
acoustic better.
There's nothing wrong
Then
with
you
it.
like
but-
real chicken better.
Okay, so
Well-
you know what? We're gonna do part 2 of this, because the one thing that we didn't get a chance to explore, we hinted at it, but in all honesty, this is where I think the line is. That place where you can create sounds or musical elements that are not possible acoustically changes
Like
the
a
equation
clap.
completely. If you're
Like-
taking an electronic emulation or a virtual emulation and only using it for the sole purpose of recreating an acoustic instrument, then I think you get to very simply, like Bonham said, okay, if you're in an apartment or if there's a circumstantial need for it, it makes sense. But otherwise, if you could do it acoustically, just do it acoustically. But there are plenty of examples where those instruments allow you to do things you could not do, that just literally are not an option. And when that happens,
That's like the drummer with the drummers with their claps, the clap
exactly,
sounds.
or
And
triggering other effects, or like Ethan was saying, how you can bring in your own samples so that technically it feels like you're playing a saxophone, but you're
but
not playing a
but you're
saxophone.
playing a
Mhm.
harp.
It'll never replace it, but
Right. But that's my point, is when you cross into that other place. So I think that's part 2 that we should talk about next time. On that
Yeah.
note, this has been, again, awesome. I'm so glad I got to see all of you guys and chat with you a little bit before we head into the long weekend. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and having a listen and view. And you can get more at arcadiacmas.com, and lots of albums and concerts and all kinds of good stuff. We will be back next Thursday with another live show and a live podcast on Friday. And for now, I hope everybody has a great long weekend, and we will see you next time. Bye bye, everybody.